Search for wife ends in accident. Government urged to manage economy wisely in 2015. Lay police warn against use of illegal fireworks.
This is National EMTV News with Mary Bartulo.
Hello and welcome. This is Tuesday's news. A man, while frantically searching for his wife around Port Moresby, almost lost his life in a car accident today. He sustained minor injuries after his vehicle overturned twice along the Poriporana freeway. The same freeway has already claimed lives over the years.
It was 12 midday and John Poya was driving around the city in search for his wife. He was heading into Konidobu from Ben's Peak when he lost control of his vehicle, hit the curb and rolled over twice before coming to a complete stop.
Em kam itim side blame ta sol em kam lap em crash. Ok that rim blame la ta em has problem nilik so em kam go lap side na em tanim so injury em kisim lo back side blame em.
Luckily, his injuries were deep wounds on his back from broken windscreen glass and minor cuts to his head and fingers.
When you is treated look at meeting 100% is a carbon box shake. Me film. Some line pushing me on box shake. Na me look to box glass and broke so me look side to mira look at line now na me film mo pressure lo push car.
But this is not the first time John has come face to face with NCD traffic police. Constable Evara Kiovia and his team have already arrested and charged John numerous times for driving without a license and operating unregistered vehicles.
This driver is known to traffic personnel whom we issue infringement notices. We do arrest him. Sometimes we talk hard on him and then tell him not to drive the vehicle. And it is the vehicle and the driver that we've been talking about that involved in the accident. So it is unregistered. So
3 possible charges that will be laid against John include drunk driving and operating an unregistered vehicle. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, there were no cases of road accidents reported to NCD Traffic Police. Takla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Lay police are searching for a man who has gone into hiding after killing his wife during an argument which began last night. Police have not released the identity of the man, but reports say the man began beating his wife late yesterday and continued until this morning. Various objects were used to hit the mother of 2 during the assault. Early this morning, the woman died of her injuries. The husband then took her body to the Engau Hospital morgue and has since gone into hiding. Police officers who attended to the crime say they are still looking for the suspect. 2 men attempting to steal a vehicle in downtown Port Moresby were caught red-handed by police. The incident happened this morning while our EMTV News crew were out filming another news story.
The 2 men have attempted to rob a vehicle next to the BSP Bank in downtown Port Moresby, but quick response by police has resulted in them being apprehended while in the act. People gathered in numbers to witness the takedown. These 2 were believed to be the main suspects involved in a number of car theft in town. During Christmas, a number of vehicles were stolen and others had their windows smashed in by robbers looking for valuables. Police told MTV News that the festive period sees an increase in stolen vehicles every year, with the latest in Port Moresby being a vehicle belonging to the wife of a prominent leader, which was stolen in Vicent City's car park, and they are still searching for it. Police have advised vehicle owners to take extra precautions when parking in public car parks. Quinton Alomp, National EMTV News.
More complaints are emerging from Port Moresby city residents on the overflow of neglected household garbage and waste in their front yards. They claim the garbage has not been collected for at least a month and want city authorities to resume garbage collections immediately.
The overflowing of household waste, plastic bags and containers on wire bins has now seen residents piling rubbish beneath the wire bins. Each day, new piles of rubbish are added to the already full wire bins. Residents are now resorting to burning rubbish as a disposal measure to remove the waste.
So, me plus sleep long, no one plus ready to go, backpack stuff, rubbish and pollute the Osdua roadside. Everything is getting out of hand along Mosby now. So look, as no one leader or management team no control himself of waste.
Meanwhile, the NCD Waste Management Division is trying its best to collect rubbish on the collection days. Failure by concerned authorities to collect rubbish on time poses a health risk for nearby residents. It creates a bad smell and an eyesore to city dwellers and people coming in from other places.
NCDC Commission and walk long, carry out all this law, Salimol, health inspectors come one long location. All this waste management or some more in a walking walk, rubbish is stuff or one is something no god. All silent car can walking walk or no government officer or health extension officer come looking just like Samina. You go back no.
Just across the road from this pile, the drain is also filled with rubbish. And the onset of the rainy season over the next couple of weeks, these blocked up waterways could create havoc for road users. Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News.
People who clean up every morning along Port Moresby's main streets have only one request for city residents. That is, for more consideration when disposing of rubbish and not to litter. They request passengers on PMVs and moving vehicles not to throw rubbish out onto the road.
Vicky Nenga and Sevina Tohap are among a handful of cleaners who wake up early each morning to clean the streets of Port Moresby. They sweep and collect rubbish scattered by pedestrians and people traveling in moving vehicles. While New Year is approaching, these workers will continue to clean the roadsides. But this woman said in 2015 they expect people to be mature in their attitude and dispose of their rubbish appropriately.
Mibla rasi mistata still satrome na mibla luki mos na country plo mibla im change landestani change na mibla tingo sa ondo na trome rabis on pa kar mi gol proper place lo putin na mibla on man mary mibla sta clean up lo dis la road mibla ga mibla warriors on no kan trome rabis.
In June next year, Port Moresby will host the Pacific Games, which is expected to attract thousands of athletes. But Vicky Nenga says people must start helping in small ways to make the city welcoming for participating countries.
As soon as people are cleaning roads, also come go locaro, slagan still se trome. Na people say warriors, people cleaning roads, only got look so. All must think all cleaning roads, so people must carry kona tromelos and proper way or rubbish style again. So big games come up now. Time. People also cleaning road long and people think rubbish so also standing only on trome nabat road or
Meanwhile, household rubbish and those littered on the streets is visibly an eyesore this festive season. In Port Moresby's main town area, the drains are filled with rubbish, especially plastic bags. This morning, this woman volunteered to pull out some rubbish using her legs and fingers. The health and safety of these workers has not been addressed appropriately by responsible authorities, but the workers continue to do it. Quinten Alomp, National EMTV News.
Anglim South Wagi MP Joe Coim says a recent attack has not deterred him from visiting his electorate. Coim appealed to his people for peace and to allow police to investigate the matter.
Of commotion, there were some injuries.
AAP Joe Coim arrived in Port Moresby this morning to clear rumors and events surrounding an attack on him by thugs in a remote council ward in his district. Mr. Coim described the attack as a black day for the Anglim South people, but says delivery of services earmarked for his term will progress.
I'm passionate about service delivery, but I don't want opportunists, political opportunists or anybody to try along sabotage him and stop him. Just like I'm good work because
the Anglim South Wagi MP was forced to stop and step out of his car while driving to visit a 15-kilometer road project. He said the suspects used knives and threatened him and others.
They asked me to get out of the car. They started to cut my spotlights and
4 suspects have been arrested by Jiwaka police. He called for leaders in all ward councils to maintain peace throughout the festive season and let police handle the case.
No can make him more.
The MP sustained no injuries during the attack. Jack Lapave Jr., National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. In news ahead, the opposition raises concern on the economy in 2015. Welcome back to the news. 2014 has been a year of mixed fortune for the Independent Consumer and Competition Commission. In its second ever newsletter issue, Commissioner Dr. Billy Manoka said the ICCC has had some success and a fair share of downturns in other areas this year. Dr. Manoka said ICCC will continue to work on the area of competition so that an industry is not dominated by just one major player.
The ICCC has released its latest newsletter, the ICCC Brief, with the Commissioner's Christmas message and what the Commission is doing in terms of product safety and consumer protection. According to Dr. Billy Manoka, competition is the lifeblood of any capitalist economy. He admitted the ICCC has a long way to go in ensuring that there is sufficient competition in all sectors in the country. ICCC does not want to see one major player dominating an industry. Dr. Manoka revealed that recently there had been some business acquisitions that went unchecked by the Commission to determine whether the acquisition will significantly affect competition in an industry. Dr. Manoka said to allow purchases as such to go unchecked can cause vertical integration of the market, and one major player will emerge, causing a more monopolistic situation. The Commissioner said the ICCC's efforts were lacking. He highlighted that the Commission also cannot do much because the ICCC Act only allows for voluntary clearance by businesses. This means the ICCC is not under any real obligation to do market assessment before an acquisition is made. The end result of it all is that when big players dominate the markets, ordinary Papua New Guineans pay high prices for goods because there is less to no choice available. The ICCC Act is currently undergoing a review. Delhi Bagu, National MTV News.
The opposition is still concerned about what the economy has for Papua New Guineans going into the new year. Leader Don Pollier maintains there is a cash flow problem that will affect the country in delivering services in vital sectors of the economy. He called on the government to be more responsible and tell the people the truth about the country's economy.
While the government has boasted about the 8% economic growth, steady inflation rate and a high level of foreign reserves, the opposition is still not convinced. 2015, as seen by the opposition, will be a trying time for Papua New Guinea. Pollier, in a news conference this afternoon, cites a worrying trend that could force the economy into a critical state.
From my assessment, from the advice I get to the most reliable professional systems in place in Papua New Guinea, the government is running out of money.
He anticipates huge cuts in various sectors of health and education. He wants the government to revise the budget and stop the wastage of funds.
Corrective measures here, and these are the figures, therefore we must cut in these areas. For instance, the Prime Minister should step out and say, I will cut 1.1 billion kina in the funds that he has allocated under his own Prime Minister's vote. In the Prime Minister's vote, when you add all the figures in the budget, it comes up to 1.1 billion kina. That's how much is put in. About 250 million in the supplementary budget 2014, and the balance of it is in the 2015 budget that is put into the Prime Minister's own account, or the vote in the Prime Minister's office. This is the type of money that are waste at a very, very crucial time like this.
He commends the government for monitoring the economic downturn caused by the drop in oil prices, but cautioned that a move from monitoring to action is crucial at this time to help the economy avoid these challenges.
Treasury, National Planning and Finance to do that monitoring bit. But leaders, like the Prime Minister, leaders must make decisive decisions at the right time, rather than leaving things too late. There's nothing more to monitor any further. There's no facts that a government is yet to research and accomplish facts finding. The facts are there. The oil prices have dropped. The figures forecast in the budget on oil, mineral, and even on LNG are already being affected.
Mickey Cavera, National MTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, meanwhile, has described Mr. Poilievre's latest comments on the state of the economy as baseless and aimed at creating a perception of doom and gloom where there is none. Mr. O'Neill called on the opposition leader to be responsible and to challenge the government on policy and facts through a mature discussion. He said Mr. Poilievre's comments in relation to the budget were simply wrong. Mr. O'Neill also called on the media to be careful and to check the facts so as not to be hoodwinked into publishing what he terms as baseless nonsense. Lae City has recorded a peaceful December compared to previous years. Apart from minor incidents, the head of Lae's police, Ivan Lakatani, said the past 30 days has less number of murders and ethnic clashes unlike before. Lakatani, meanwhile, says his men will be on full alert to respond to instances of crime that may happen over the next 3 days of celebrations.
Christmas in Lae over the years used to be dominated by law and order problems. Armed hold-ups, ethnic clashes and murders used to top the Lae's police crime list. Outside perception about Lae in terms of its law and order issues were most of the times negative, but for the past 30 days it was different.
Unlike before, where we have so many incidents of robberies and carjacking, I think for the last few days we have not had any major robberies.
Much of the information and statistics about Lae's serious crimes come from here. Earlier today, the head of Lae's Metropolitan Command, Chief Superintendent Ivan Lakatani, says the Lae Police Force, although with limited manpower, will hold on the fort for the remainder of 2014.
The police are still working around the clock, both day and night, especially patrolling the settlements, the notorious places like the back road.
Much of the credit has been attributed to the work of policemen and women over the last 2 months in and around Lae City. Ivan Lakatani says while the situation looks promising, the next 2 days may be different. He says his men will be on high alert for any hint of trouble that may arise over the next 72 hours of festivity that begins tonight. Edwin Fidelis, National MTV News, Lae.
Illegal fireworks continue to be sold and distributed on the streets of Lae City even after authorities have given warnings. But as New Year approaches, Lae Metropolitan Superintendent Ivan Lakatani has again warned those using and selling them that if they get caught, they will be jailed. Bethany Harriman reports.
As the new year arrives, the Lae Police move to contain illegal fireworks has had minimal impact. Though Lae Police boss Ivan Lakatani has given stern warning against the sales and distribution of fireworks, it still continues.
And that was the reason why I issued instruction to my policemen to go and check the shops, if there were any shops selling these firecrackers.
Fireworks were widely used during Christmas celebrations. While it may seem a small problem for the festive season only, the implications are severe. The sales and distribution of the illegal item has brought to attention how easy it is to smuggle guns and hard drugs into Papua New Guinea. Lae has become the transit point for the fireworks that has already reached Goroka and other parts of the highlands. This Lae boy from a residential area in Eriku showed us his 8-round fireworks.
Uncle Loom by 20 kina.
Another man holding 2 that he bought from distributors at a bus stop.
Mr. Ravi Musem, Karim, Mr. Kamlu Town. Policeman only me on the $15 main market. Now charging me 200 kina labay.
While the police give warnings, fireworks have become a seasonal want and a profit maker for those selling. Bethany Harriman, National MTV News, Lae.
Port Moresby has seen an ease in traffic congestion, but PMV bus operators say the festive season has also caused a drop in their profit levels. Much of the time is spent at bus stops waiting for passengers.
This was the scene at downtown today. Almost 7 buses lining up and waiting for passengers for almost 30 minutes. Unlike before, bus operators are now competing with other operators to attract passengers into their buses.
People are making 4 to 415 about people are making, but now I'm come down to 200 to 15 about people.
The bus stop in town serves 4 routes. This includes Gordon's, Hanua Bada, Konidobu and Boroko areas. On a normal working day, the estimated time bus operators spend here is 5 minutes. But since Christmas, they have had to wait longer for enough passengers.
We're taking longer time. Past time, we plus start was 5 minutes or 10 minutes. The pull up bus no go ahead. Now we taking some 30 minutes or 1 hour, 1 hour. 30 minutes, kind of same. Wait now, go on.
Other city bus stops face a similar case. There are more buses and fewer passengers. But bus operators and drivers are looking forward to the onset of the new year because only then will passengers' numbers return to normal. Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has commended citizens and law enforcement agencies around the country for a fairly safe Christmas period. He called on everyone to also welcome the new year with the same caution. Mr. O'Neill conveyed his best wishes for people around PNG to enjoy New Year's Eve celebrations and start 2015 on a positive and a safe note. In his New Year's message, opposition leader Don Polier has encouraged Papua New Guineans to focus more on their families. He advised parents to abstain from illegal gambling to spend more time with their children. He says government alone can't bring change. Rather, it takes every citizen to focus on changing themselves and to change the nation.
I would advise the fathers not to be responsible, especially those that drink, those that chew. I'm not discriminatory, but you do lose quite a lot of money in some of those unnecessary activities you do. I would advise fathers not to go to the pockets. Please stay out of the pockets. That doesn't do anything good to the family back home. Any money that you find you have, I'd rather say you save it, you keep it, don't abuse it. And the mothers, look at your budgets and make sure that you don't spend more than what you need. The children, I like to advise the children not to put too much pressure on your fathers and your mothers because the economic challenge ahead of us would not be that easy.
And now a look at the finance news. The Kina closed 15 points lower at $0.3855 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina was buying $0.3795 $0.4630 Australian dollars, $0.3088 euro and 45.35 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, cocoa closed higher, gold and coffee closed lower, and copper closed the day unchanged. Palm oil closed higher, while crude oil and copper closed lower. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed at 15 points lower, the ASX closed at 22 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 22 points higher as well. Government moves to address housing concerns and Kerama Hospital to see some welcome developments. Those stories and more when we return. Welcome back to the news. Housing Minister Paul Ezekiel says the government is working towards addressing the housing problems in the urban areas in the country. The minister's response follows resentment on high rental fees in Port Moresby and Lae and the rundown state of properties owned by the National Housing Corporation. Sylvester Gawi has this report from Lae.
The demand for affordable accommodation in Lae City continues to increase along with the rentals. The economic boom has taken about half of undeveloped land in Lae, and residential developments are being pushed further out to the fringes of the city. Paul Ezekiel and the National Housing Corporation are also facing similar problems. They are still looking for available land in Lae City so that new houses can be erected.
Most of the land that the state has owned has already either been stolen or it's either been sold out. My biggest problem as Minister for Housing is actually to try to acquire as many UDL under the state land lease.
In recent years, properties owned by the National Housing Corporation have been allowed to deteriorate. The Salamander Flats in Lae City is an example of rundown accommodation owned by the Housing Corporation. Paul Ezekiel says the government is now investing millions of kina into seeing affordable housing programs being rolled out in the country.
Lae, I've got officers working on the ground to identify land so that we can also roll out housing in Lae.
In Port Moresby, the National Housing Corporation has acquired 60 hectares of land at the Durand Farm. About 25,000 houses will be built on that land. Minister Ezekiel says they are still in talks with landowners to acquire land from the Igam Barracks up to Bumayong and the Najab area for new houses in Lae. Sylvester Gawi, National EMTV News, Lae.
Sea piracy has now become a growing concern for people along the coastline of Morobe province. Criminals are now using boats to prey on travellers on speedboats from Lae City. In an incident last weekend, 2 banana boats with passengers bound for Finchafen were robbed along the Bukawa coast. Earlier this year, police were given a dinghy and an outboard motor to conduct patrols along the coast from Lae City. Lae Metropolitan Superintendent Commander Ivan Lakatani expressed disappointment but says the incident happened outside his jurisdiction. People engaged in the SME sector around NCD have raised concerns for government to build markets for them to sell their goods. While PNG prepares itself for the upcoming 2015 Pacific Games and the APEC Summit, creating markets in NCD would provide an avenue for these people to sell their goods rather than using the streets and bus stops as marketplaces.
With the country's growth, the population of people living in the nation's capital has increased. Many people in NCD have engaged into the SME sector by selling goods on the streets to earn money. Priscilla Michael is one of these people selling store goods like soft drinks, smokes, mobile phones and other accessories for the past years to make a living. Despite receiving several threats and harassment from law enforcing agency while selling goods in public places, this is their only way of making a living in the city. Many of them usually sit under the sun to sell their goods on makeshift tables or along pavements besides office buildings and stores. As the sole breadwinner for a family, Saina Thomas says the money she earns is mainly used to buy food for the house and school fees for her children.
Some people in work, some people work. Some people no work, some people live in the market, some people lose him. People plan to pick any plus the long time must be some people no work, some people live in the market or something.
These vendors are hoping that with the upcoming 2015 Pacific Games and the APEC meeting, more opportunities will be created for the SME sector.
Also Pacific Game come. Mi plan sali mo sem government tok nogad lo bitul not selling no just lem nogad. Just la all slippers na mobile number mi plan sali mi plan yes lugulu lo PBA blo mi plan na mi plan clean him na mi plan stablo.
Providing markets for these people in the SME sector will help reduce street sales in NCD. Eric Arukma, National EMTV News.
A guideline that will strengthen Oktedi Mining Limited's working relationship with communities and shareholders will be implemented in Western Province. Oktedi Mining Limited is the first company to launch a comprehensive community relations manual that gives directions for the development and implementation of programs and activities.
The Oktedi Mining Limited Community Relations Manual captures over 30 years of accumulated knowledge, experience and successful practices in community engagement. The manual was recently launched in Tawabel by Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer Nigel Parker and Chief Operating Officer Mushe Wera. Mr. Parker in a statement maintains harmonious relationship with its community mine continuation agreement regions and other stakeholders like the national government, Fly River provincial government, faith-based organizations, development partners and local businesses. The manual outlines the socio-economic and environmental context, legal and policy framework and procedural requirements for conducting community relations activities. It provides a practical guide to program, methods and activities to promote consistency and standard procedures in the workplace environment.
It's a useful reference material for key government agencies as well as other stakeholders in the mining industry of Papua New Guinea. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Lay police have enhanced their services with the new cell management system initiated this year by the Australian Federal Police through the help of a national university. The cell management system is there to control the number of offenders entering and leaving the lay police cells. Metropolitan Superintendent Ivan Lakatani says the data system has improved the work of the Lay Central Police Station.
The cell management system is part of the initiatives by the Australian Federal Police operations over the last 12 months. Lay's Metropolitan Superintendent Ivan Lakatani says the opening of the cell management system has improved the monitoring of prisoners at the police lockup.
Now we are able to release people, or release genuine people that is face to the name.
Lay over the years has had a fluctuating rate of crime issues in the city, and Lay's police station has experienced cases where offenders leave the cells illegally without being charged or taken to court. The AFP's introduction of the cell management system is now there to guide police personnel.
But the biggest improvement is the reduction in the number of detainees that we have in the cells.
The Lay Central Police Station, meanwhile, is extending its buildings with an administrative office complex that will contain the office of the Metropolitan Commanding Officer, the AFP administrative staff and a conference room. Colleen Barilai, National EMTV News, Lay.
A new office complex and ward for the Kerama General Hospital is soon to be completed for use. Chief Executive of the hospital, Moses Uvaipi, says the buildings will minimize overcrowding of patients in some of the wards.
Kerama Hospital is one of the least developed hospitals in the country. The past 10 years have seen the hospital struggle in accommodating patients, its staff and maintenance of facilities. But good partnership and funding through NGOs and the Gulf Provincial Government sees the construction of a 3-story building, a first-of-its-kind building for the hospital.
Hopefully by January we should move into the new building with the new adult outpatient and the pediatric plus the administration on the first floor of that building. That building is ready.
The building will house the hospital's administration and a patient ward. The chief executive says an agreement with non-government organization Doctors Without Borders has resulted in the building of a proper hospital mess.
Far too long we haven't had a good mess for our patients and also for the staff. So our aim is that we have a proper messing facilities where we can treat our patients well.
But more funding and support is needed for the hospital to build more specialist wards and for maintenance of some of its current facilities. Meanwhile, TB awareness and treatment at the hospital is progressing with outreaches to districts outside the town early next year. Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. Trukai Sports is up next. I'll bring you updates on rugby and swimming. Stay with us.
Tukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Following the official announcement of the PNG Pukpuk's placement in Pool B for the 2015 HSBC Wellington Sevens, preparation should be tough considering the festive period break. The Pukpuks, however, have built a constructive and winning formula over the past 12 months. Although winning the cup may be out of their reach, their hunger to improve the standard of rugby sevens in the country may just come through with their one chance at playing at the second highest level of sevens competition.
There has been so much emphasis placed on the success of the national sevens team this year. Current 15's coach, former Pukpuks rep and an ambassador of rugby union in the country, Sydney Wesley, commends the boys on their efforts, saying this is by far the best performance he's seen in recent years.
This year has made qualify, and it's by right our performance got us there instead of being invited. So
think the boys can just build on that. There's a lot of better things to come.
In contrast, when assessing the boys' performance dating back almost 10 years, the Pukpuks team of 2014 have truly set the benchmark and paved the way forward for rugby in the country. However, Wesley says the boys need to build on their current reputation as they now have a professional sporting image to uphold.
Supporting them, or even as a player, as a coach, taking part in this capacity to really feel that sort of patriotism feeling inside you.
The Pukpuk Sevens will have a short 2-month turnover to prepare for what will be their biggest international staging ever since a decade ago. Lorraine Genia, National, EMTV Sports.
Although the success of Rugby Sevens have overshadowed that of Rugby 15s, recently appointed head coach and rugby ambassador Sydney Wesley is keen on reviving the 15s concept around the country. A much-needed player-based selection and exposure is required for the strength of the code. The recently announced Pukpuk's 15 squad will go into camp come February 2015 and will be trimmed down for the test match against Singapore next year.
Port Moresby and Lae have been running simultaneous 15s competitions for a number of years and is evident in the selection of players in the Pukpuk's 15 squad. Recently appointed coach for the Pukpuk's 15 squad, Sydney Wesley, is enthusiastic of reviving and strengthening 15s competitions in minor centres around the country for a wide selection of player base.
I mean, since taking up the post as the national coach, I've been really working hard on that to, for those that are running, to make it even stronger, competitive. And there's some centres that haven't been running a 15s comp for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm working real hard on that with the cooperation of the respective provincial centres, the president, to get it up and running.
As part of their campaign to the Oceania Championships, the Pukpuks will face Singapore in a test match. This will be an avenue for the team's exposure and credibility for recognition and a lift in the current IRB rankings.
The Singapore tour coming up, I think it's a good incentive for the players. And I don't really know much about Singapore rugby that is in the 15s, but from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of experts playing with Singapore team as well, and I think that should be a good challenge. And probably it's good to measure our players, our ability to play as a team against Singapore, and it's a good preparation, like I said, for Oceania Championship.
With the success of the Sevens tournaments around the country and Pukpuk Sevens team this year, Rugby 15s attracts the biggest following in Port Moresby and Lae.
The boys are currently training, the Moresby boys. They've been knocked off for the festive season, but they're still doing the on-field training. And I'm always keeping in touch with the guys in Daru, in Lae, in Rabaul, and in Goroka, and everybody's pretty much gearing up for the big camp. That'll be from the 9th of February to 15th, and I think a couple of days after that, the squad will be announced to Singapore.
Scholar Sangi, National, EMTV Sports.
Trukai Sports continues after the break.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Former PNG Athletics coach Tom Brandt is keeping a close eye on PNG Athletics despite leaving the country in 1990 to manage the track and field facility at the University of Queensland. And with the 2015 Pacific Games some months away, Brandt's role remains important, and for PNG Athletics, his services remain invaluable.
Brandt's wider knowledge and success in exposing talent at an international level is something that he can be credited for. He represented PNG in the marathon before becoming a successful coach in the 1980s. Based at the National Sports Institute in Goroka, he coached the likes of Takale Tuna, John Ho, Elanga Buala, Ferdinand Nonkas, Tau John Tokwepota, and many other successful PNG representatives. Brandt was called back into the country in 2012 for PNG Games and operated the photo finish system at the athletics competition. He also helped out in running PNG Athletics talent identification program, for 2015 Pacific Games early this year. Tom Brandt was born to Lutheran missionaries Amy and Roland Brandt at Finchafen in 1947. And apart from going to high school in Brisbane and university in the US, he lived in PNG until going Finnish in 1989. Amy and Roland are now looking forward to celebrate on January 3rd, 2015, their 70th wedding anniversary at Croydale in Bayport, Minnesota, where they now live in an assisted living facility. Tere Alex, National EMTV Sports.
And that does it for Trukai Sports tonight. Up next, the weather details. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather information is brought to you by Tablebirds.
Taking a look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region, all centres fine except Port Moresby. You can expect possible late evening showers. To the Momasi region, Lae, you can expect evening showers for Madang and fine for Wewak and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands, Lorengau and Kavian, you can expect a few showers, and showers are expected in Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, all centres, evening showers, then morning fog. A look at the forecast for small ships, all seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Finally, to the ocean forecast for PNG areas, Coral and Solomon Seas slight with southeasterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. Bismarck Sea seas slight with west to northwesterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. And for the Pacific Ocean, seas slight with southwest to northwesterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. And before we go, in news just in response to claims by opposition leader Don Pollier that the Prime Minister's office has a vote of more than 1 billion kina, the Prime Minister's office has responded saying no such funds exist and that Pollier should stop misleading the people of Papua New Guinea with untruths. The office also said that this was a disgrace for someone who is now in the position of leader of the opposition. And that's the way it is this Tuesday, the 30th of December. One more day to a brand new year. On behalf of the EMTV News team, I'm Meribatulo, wishing you a pleasant evening of viewing right here on EMTV.